Hello and welcome to this month's newsletter. Now, it's been quite a month. The month of March just passed, and we kicked off with a focus on personalised medicine with Dr. Olivia Lessler. That was followed on by our annual visit to the cardiologist with integrative cardiologist Dr. Ross Walker. And Ross is always a wealth of information. He's such a great communicator. He has his own weekly 2-hour national radio program. He's a practicing cardiologist. He's written 7 books or more, maybe. I've lost count. And he happens to be my cardiologist, and I like to share him with you on an annual basis because cardiovascular health is something we all need to be engaged with. It's still the biggest killer globally. I think something like 18 million people a year die of cardiovascular disease, which equates to 50,000 deaths a day. And so much of that is preventable, and Ross makes a very compelling argument or makes a compelling case for that. We also continued our exploration of the P's of the pandemic, and so any regular listener to my podcast will know that I have now identified, I think it's up to 10 P's of the pandemic which have driven this pandemic. And you could argue about the order of which the first 9 are, but I think it's undeniable that the 10th P, public health, is definitely at the bottom of the pile. It's been dominated by profit, politics, power, patent, panic, psychosis, polarisation, peer pressure, professors, many of which are key opinion leaders and product champions, and then there is public health, and we dive into that in a few of the healthy bites. Then I go on to talk to Tyson Yunkaporta, and we talked about his wonderful book, Sand Talk, How Indigenous Knowledge Can Transform the World. And I think that was just such a great, I so enjoyed that conversation. It was a real yarn between us two. And we were talking about Indigenous knowledge and the protocols of Indigenous knowledge being first to respect, then to connect, then to reflect, and eventually to direct or act. And I love the way that is ordered. It's a very specific order. And the foundation on which it's all built is respect. And the thing I loved about Tyson's book was just the Indigenous, I think if you had to summarise it, it is just connection. Connected with everything. Everything is connected. Now, we often say on this program that holistic is not just some new age philosophy. It just happens to be the way the body works, and it happens to be the way the planet works. But Indigenous knowledge takes it to a whole other level. I mean, it is inseparable. We are inseparable from the land, from country. Country is such an all-encompassing term in Indigenous culture, and I believe we have so much to learn from it. And I'm really hoping to get many more guests on to discuss what other lessons we can learn. I'm just reading a wonderful book by Bruce Pascoe and Bill Gammage. Now, Bruce Pascoe authored that fantastic book, Dark Emu, which adorns my bookshelf here as a major book. I believe it's absolutely essential reading for anybody who lives in Australia, Dark Emu. And Bill Gammage, who wrote another book, fabulous book called The Biggest Estate on Earth, and talked about what Australia looked like when the invaders arrived in 1788. And we have so many lessons to learn from our Indigenous culture. So that was with Tyson Yunkaporta, and then finally we wrapped up the month talking to a pediatric respiratory and sleep medicine specialist, Dr. Jim Papadopoulos. Now, I'd spoken to Jim many years ago on another podcast that I did, but that was probably about 8 years ago, and it was great to touch base with Jim again and to realise what professional development is all about, because he's talking about respiratory problems, he's talking about sleep problems, particularly from a child's point of view, and children's sleep is a major problem. And the response of a child who doesn't sleep well is either to be aggressive or listless. It is also a sobering fact to know that up to 1 in 10 children, it's 1 in 10 males and 1 in 5 females, girls, are diagnosed with ADHD. And so many of those, at least half of those people diagnosed with ADHD have an undiagnosed sleep disordered breathing condition. And then when we looked at people with Down syndrome, that figure goes up to 60%, 60 to 80% of children with Down syndrome have a sleep disordered breathing condition, which predisposes them to cardiovascular disease. And so it goes on. So this was a great conversation with Jim, and he really tied in how important gut health was and how disruptive reflux can be, gastroesophageal reflux or silent reflux. And in the coming month, we talk more about silent reflux. So it's been a great month. Look, it's been a busy month for the Holistic Health Institute, which has traditionally been the producers of this podcast from the very beginning. It was our company which we received an Australian Research and Development grant, an R&D grant, some 5 or 6 years ago to develop the health assessment tool, which I would encourage you to all go online and fill out. And I'm very excited. I know I've been talking about Unstress 21-day wellness program and Unstress subscription model, which gives you the online platform, which has all of our Unstress. Now, it has so many resources on there. Where do I begin? There are webinars, there are ebooks, there are masterclasses, there's live Q&As, there's a whole community, there's an advisory panel which we get to draw on, and I'm excited to say that that is growing each and every time by the week. The advisory panel for the Holistic Health Institute and the Unstress platform is growing, because my idea for this and my aim for this is to develop a reliable platform for health and environmental information from a holistic perspective, drawing on clinical experience backed by science, independent science, not the science in medicine that is funded by drug companies and is there for profit. This is about putting us, human and planetary health, at the top as the overriding holistic context. So this is about to be launched. I'm hoping to get this going in the next few months, so look out for it and do join us. There are so many exciting initiatives coming out of that, and I'm really proud of it. And I think it's a function of perhaps my professional background of being obsessive, that things have to be just right. And I'm not going to pretend that this is perfect. It's a work in progress, but it's at a point where I'm happy to release it and share it with you. And so that's been quite a busy month for us, not just on the podcast, not just in the Healthy Bites, but also in the working on the platform, which we're hoping will be released in May and June, and will be the beginning of a global initiative, because we are going global. The Australian government has recognised what the potential of this is, and I'm proud to announce that we've also received an export development grant. So I'm really serious. And why am I doing this? Because I don't know about you, but the world has become very polarised. I've been shocked by how influential industry is. I've known that the chemical, food and pharmaceutical industry are very influence all levels of healthcare, from research, universities, regulatory bodies, journals, right to the coalface of the doctor's surgery. The industry is very resourceful. It's very well resourced. And now to that, over the last 2 years, like many of you, I have been shocked by the influence of industry right across the board now, and I've stopped talking about news organisations and recognised them to be nothing more than media outlets. So what the idea of the Unstressed platform is that we curate the content, collaborate with like-minded organisations and people, and bring together a community of like-minded people whose focus is individual, family, community and planetary health. They are all connected. So, and we've got a great month ahead with some great interviews and some great guests. So I hope this finds you well. I hope you've enjoyed the last month. I hope you are going to enjoy the coming month and certainly the coming months on the Unstressed platform. Until then, this is Dr. Ron Ehrlich. Be well.